excited about wanting to keep things short.
Well, I'm good with that, but I don't know if it's going to happen.
I sent I sent someone a link one time to one of our earlier episodes. I had meant to send him a link to another random YouTube video, and he's like, "Oh my God, it's an hour and a half long," and I'm like, "Yes, that is the normal response to people when they hear our podcast." But let's get started because there's football to be watched today. Um, so we had the newest episode, the Zygon Invasion. Um, Welcome back, Melissa. Thanks for being here.
Hello.
You were not replaced by a replicant,
Or was I?
or
I
were
mean,
you?
yeah.
We'll be able to tell. We'll be able to tell on how well you're able to um, argue with us. So, very good.
Based on how many disagreements I have with Marco, that'll be the teller right there.
I'm the bellwether.
Exactly. So we'll be able to tell whether you were replaced or not. But I thought this was a cool episode. They seem to be doing this two-parter thing a lot during this season, and I think that's really serving them well. Where they're having kind of two-episode story arcs, but it's also they're not ending on like a cheesy cliffhanger or anything.
Right.
This one had like a big reveal, and you're like, "Oh my gosh!" But it wasn't the same as back in season one with Eccleston, Doctor Nine with the farting robot or farting aliens,
Yeah.
and they're like, "We've trapped you!" Ha 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 ha! And they get out of it. So, yeah, this was much better. I like the flow of how they're introducing these episodes, and I thought this was a really cool way for them to move this story along. Other first impressions from you two?
I think Moffat's just continuing to just knock them out of the park because I really like this episode for reasons that I'm going to go into. I think this was a social commentary on geopolitical problems that we have in the world.
Oh yeah,
One in particular, it was handled like very, very well. It's the kind of grown-up discussion we should be having, but we have to do it through sci-fi because people are too stupid to have that grown-up conversation.
What, you don't think that Donald Trump and Ted Cruz are able to bring the kind of adult viewpoint on these issues? Yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah, so they're fantastic. I loved it, and I can't wait for next week. But I mean, there's just plenty to talk about in this one. It's crazy.
Yeah, Melissa?
I didn't like it as much as you guys. That's not to say I didn't. It's not to say I disliked it because I didn't. I did like it overall, but I have some issues with it, and I definitely picked up on the political issues that y'all are talking about. It's basically the Zygons are like Muslims, is what it boils down to, I think. And because this is especially happening in Europe. I mean, you think there's like anti-Muslim sentiment here. It's really bad in Europe right now, especially with all the refugees coming from other countries and stuff. So, and England is a particular hotbed for this. You remember when I said that I feel like England and the United States are more alike than either country cares to admit?
Yeah.
And this is one of those reasons. I mean, there is xenophobia like crazy there. But the thing I have a few issues with. First of all, last week's episode I thought was one of the best episodes of New Who that I've seen. I mean, it was really great.
Yeah.
And for this to come right after that, that's a hard sell. I mean, anything was bound to be a little disappointing. I mean, this episode, it's like the comedian at the comedy club who had Robin Williams as their opening act. Like how do you follow up with that? You know what I mean?
Like, oh crap.
You're screwed,
Yeah.
So that's what it's sort of, I think taking on its own merit, and it suffers from placement behind that episode, you know, a little bit. But also, I think I would have been okay for them to have left the Zygons where they did. I understand the need to revisit this issue because when we saw in the anniversary special, we saw them brokering the peace when the Zygons and the humans didn't know who was who. And we didn't really get details on what that piece was, and now we know. I understand the need for, like, almost for continuity's sake to revisit it, but I never found the Zygons compelling enough to really care. I would have been fine if they left it there, I think, you know, because I hadn't really given it much thought since then. Do you
I
understand what I'm saying?
totally, and I agree with you to a point. Like, I don't think they're that compelling in general, but how they are compelling is the fact that they can mimic other humans, and
Yeah,
therefore they're hidden, and it's that nature. And there was a lot of this same territory that got explored in the Marvel Secret Invasion arc with the Skrulls, who are basically
Right.
the same kind of thing. They come in and they replicate humans and they replace them and try and take over as them. And that sort of threat where you don't know who is what's interesting. The Zygons themselves, take them or leave them. But what I really did like about this was the Doctor going in and saying, like, look, these guys aren't all of the Zygons. They're a splinter faction, and we can't just bomb them because you're going to radicalize everybody. And that's that commentary, like you were saying, Mark. That is exactly where this is going, and where we have these issues of supposed sleeper cells and things like that, and we don't know who is who, but it seems like the vast majority of people are just folks, like Muslim, Christian, Hindu, whatever. The vast majority of people are just folks, and yeah, there are some radical elements in each of them, but you don't win a war against those radical elements by turning everyone against you. And so I think this is a very deft way of making that point. So I really liked where they were going with this.
Yeah, there's okay. So the analogy here is terrorism, right? So,
Yeah.
and we're talking about terrorists. How we don't have a traditional enemy anymore. It's not like the guys in the red coats and you point and you shoot. You know, the red coats are coming at you. It's not like that anymore. They look like us. They come into our society, and they I don't want to say infiltrate, but I guess they assimilate. But then all of a sudden, you know, the sleeper cells wake up, and then you have the issues that we have around the world. So the big question is, can you approach this? Is there a solution to this? The Doctor is obviously having a very hard time trying to find a solution, because he tells the soldiers, like, the soldiers are told, you know, just shoot first, don't listen, you're gonna get sucked in. And, you know, the soldiers eventually they listen, they start listening, and they start, you know, filling themselves with false confidence that, no, these aren't the Zygons. And then guess what happens? They all get killed. So we have that same issue here, and there's no real easy answer to this in terms of terrorism, and there's no easy answer for the Doctor as well, because of the fact that you can't tell who's who. You know, and what terrorists are we talking about? Like Melissa said, of course, we're talking about Muslim terrorists, because the two young Zygons that became the leaders of the revolution movement to break away from the peace agreement were young, of course, just like young Muslims are the ones who are fueling this whole thing about terrorism throughout the world. So it's a perfect analogy to what's happening, but I'm so curious as to what's going to happen next week, because I want to know what kind of answer they come up with as to how do we take care of this. Do we round up all the Zygons and send them away to another planet? Or do we learn to coexist with them? Can we even coexist with them? And in terms of, you know, we here on Earth and, you know, in the real world, how do we handle terrorists? Do we all just round every Muslim up and send them to the Middle East and keep them there? Is that the answer? Will they assimilate? Do we need for them to assimilate? There's all these questions, and they're very, very, very hard to answer. I was having this conversation with Yvonne because she was like, I don't really understand if I get the gist of what happened in this episode. And I told her, well, in the West, the Western countries, we tell Muslims, yeah, you guys can come over. We want you to come over, but you kind of have to be like us. You kind of have to talk like us. You kind of have to accept our democracy. You kind of have to respect our not only religious liberties, but also feminine rights. You have to come over to our side completely. And at first, some of them might say, yeah, we'll do that. But then they start to resist because it's not their way. So then you have a movement like ISIS that says, not only do we reject Western culture, but we're going to spread out and we're going to spread our own type of culture. And then you're at a loggerheads, which is what we have in real life and which is what we're having in this Doctor Who episode. So it was pretty deep. I was really, really into it. And I was nodding in a lot of places. And I'm dying to see what happens next week because I want to know, is there a message that these guys are trying to give to us? Because next week the episode was co-written by Stephen Moffat. So what is it that they're trying to say? It's leading to somewhere interesting.
Well, and it is interesting, and this episode posed a ton of questions. We're not going to get those answers until next week, but that next week episode, you notice, this episode was called the Zygon Invasion. Next week is the Zygon Inversion. So you wonder, what that is. You also forget the Doctor has a doomsday weapon that they can use, and UNIT wants to get their hands on it. They can kill all the Zygons. Contemplating that sort of genocide. What does that mean? I don't know, Melissa. Do you think this is going to come to a reasonable ending, or do you think we're all going to be disappointed by next week?
I'm not sure that there's a good ending no matter what. Every ending, all the potential endings that I can think of are going to be at least slightly polarizing to someone, anyone who picked up on the allegory here. And the one thing I worry about, though, remember that they have the Osgood box, right? We don't know what's in it. We just know that if things, if everyone's SOL, then at that point use it, right? I've complained multiple times on this show before about Deus Ex Machinas in the Doctor Who universe. And if they've built this up and made me somewhat care about these damn Zygons that I don't even like, and then there's like a red button or something in there, I'm going to be really pissed.
Oh, there's going to be a red button.
Right?
It's totally going to be a red button.
Exactly what I was thinking. I was like, oh, there better not be a red button in there. I'm going to be so mad. They've used the first time I brought this up, it was, the sonic screwdriver being used to do really incredible and occasionally really stupid things in order to tidy up a storyline. And I worry that that's what the box is going to do. It's just going to tidy it up, and it'll be disappointing. But no matter what they do, of course, like complete genocide of the Zygons, if you're looking at the allegory, that would be, really controversial. Let's face it, it really would be. But how do they do anything else? Whatever they do, they're going to get criticized for. So no matter what, it'll be interesting to see. I just worry about that stupid box being there. It's sort of like the big elephant in the room, and we don't know what's going to happen with it.
It could be Schrodinger's box. It could be that everything's there, but it could be that nothing's there. It's just a deterrent.
I have a guess that I think the Osgood box contains something that forces the Zygons to appear as themselves, and they lose the ability to mimic anyone else.
Good one.
And it's like essentially they're able to, and then they can go out there and say, this is our deterrent. If you don't stop killing people, we're going to expose you, and then you're all going to die because people will turn against you. Or we can go back to this detente where you're living among us, but you're peaceful. So I think that might be where they're going, but yeah, but um, that is kind of a Deus ex machina. It it takes away the only thing that's interesting about the Zygons, and possibly takes it away from them. So
I'm disturbed by the lack of love for the Zygons.
Can we talk about that for a minute? Let me explain myself here, because the concept of the Zygons is compelling. The thought that there's this race of beings, whatever the heck those melted pink tire looking things, that like, there's a whole race of these creatures that can mimic, turn into human form and mimic people that we know. I mean, anyone could be a Zygon. That's very compelling. It's sort of, it's like the new from Battlestar Galactica.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
The toasters, yeah.
Toasters. I want to say toasters, but what's their name?
Cylons.
Cylons. Ching, Gao. I could not remember the words. I was thinking toasters too, but I was like, they're gonna be toasters. What, is she hungry or something? Anyway, so yeah, that's a very compelling. I mean, Battlestar Galactica based a whole series on that, and did it very, very well.
Except for the ending.
Thing is, well, yeah, everybody's got to always bring up the ending of that show. But the thing is that they camped it up with the way it looks. They look, the color and the ridiculous shape and those teeth, and it takes away some of their bite. You know what I mean? It takes away. It's hard to take them seriously. It's very campy. Don't be wrong. Campy can be a lot of fun. I'm all about the camp, but in a season where we have this Doctor who's darker and more nihilistic than any of his predecessors, I just feel like it almost feels out of place a little.
It certainly takes their insidious nature away from them if they're
exactly.
like big, just like villains rather than
exactly.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so this is where I think
it's a good concept, bad execution, I think.
This is where I don't think so, because he's staying true to the Zygons from Classic Who, and I really dug the Zygons when I was a kid, and I'm really digging them now. They're pretty much the same. But here's the thing, and the Doctor said it more than once, where my thing about Osgood's box is that it's going to be a device that allows a hybrid situation to happen between humans and Zygons, where we're going to be carrying a bit of the Zygon genetic code with us for eternity, or that this will be our next evolutionary step. I think something like that might happen, because the Doctor did mention hybrid more than once, and and that might even be the answer for our world issues. Let's stop being so nationalistic and cross each other's borders and marry each other. That way we finally get it through our thick skulls that we're all the same people. We're all the same. We all share the same genetic code. Enough with this fighting each other. This might be an answer. It's impractical, but still, I mean, in a utopian world, this would be an answer. Like, you have two people fighting each other, let them marry each other.
That's my I have a friend who that's his answer. He's like, we gotta keep effing until we're all the same color.
Yes, send me to the Middle East. I'll be the first. I don't care. I'll have some fun.
So, that's an interesting thing. And the question of whether, who is Osgood? Is she a Zygon? Is she a human? She doesn't necessarily remember, which is very interesting.
Doesn't want to tell, I
Is
think.
it? Oh, okay. Well, I guess that's
Okay.
true. But is she a hybrid? Like, were they able to do some sort of weird thing where they both became half human, half Zygon? Um, so I don't know. It'll be. I think there's a possibility for that as well. I like that answer almost more than I like my answer. Rather than a threat thing, it's a well, we all have to learn to live with one another because we're not going to know, and
Right.
and we're all going to start intermarrying with one another.
And that's pretty much what happened at the end of Battlestar Galactica. If you ignore the whole angel crap
Oh
and
yeah,
and the whole that they're predecessors to humans. But I mean I mean in the end that's about the only choice we have, right? I mean, we can either be at war with each other until the end of time, until there's one whatever person versus one whatever person, and the last one to stay alive wins, but there's nothing to win anymore,
yeah,
or we can just intermarry each other and there's no reason to fight anymore because, we all have the same blood. Although we should already have that attitude right now because we're all humans, but we have these arbitrary lines on a map that dictate who we should pray to or who we should be loyal to, which is incredibly stupid to begin with.
yeah.
But maybe that's an answer. I don't know, man.
I don't know. Like all I know is that I have never been so sick to my stomach worrying about a hurricane coming ashore as I was a few weeks ago with Hurricane Patricia. And I was like, this is going to be very bad. Luckily, it was nowhere near as bad as it could have been, but I was like really, really, really worried. Most people just like, it's going to hit Mexico, so what? Um, that like kept me up at night. It's like I don't care if it's like across an imaginary border. Like that's just a line somewhere. Those are human people, and like this is fu- this storm was fueled by our actions and our consumption and burning of fossil fuels. And so like I have a moral responsibility for the fact that this storm
Just
is.
lost like more than half of all Americans right there when you said that we fueled it. 'Cause I understand what you mean and I agree, but you just lost like 90% of the South and maybe
I
more than
know.
of the rest of the country. You lost them right there without even having to say that Mexicans are human, in which you lost again 90% of the South and then you know half of all Americans. You would have lost the rest of the 10 and 50% there. Yeah, no, I get what you're saying, and I don't completely disagree. Although it's not just about skin color. Like I've heard that line, "Let's all f each other till we're the same color," but it's not about color. It's about culture and religion. There's too many variables here. You
Right.
know, I mean, you can have like a Muslim and a white person get married, but which religion are they going to follow? Their kids might come out a different shade that you're talking about, but you know, is she going to wear a burqa? Is he going to pray to God or Allah? I mean, what's going to happen here? You know, there's just too many other variables. It's not that simple.
But it makes it harder to hate your grandson. If you're a lifelong Muslim hater and your grandson ends up being half Muslim or whatever,
I think you're
or,
giving people too much credit.
but no, well, I'm not saying you're going to reach like the great majority. Of course, there are going to be some people who are prejudiced no matter what you do.
Yep.
Uh, but it makes it harder for those people that have those natural prejudices to continue their hatred if their progeny becomes half something else. Like you end up chipping away at that hatred, and especially if they start to communicate with the other side a lot more because their kid got married to the other side's kid. Barriers start to break, and it's not going to happen overnight, but eventually, they'll see the pointlessness of hating each other for so long.
But I think that was kind of key to this episode was, when they went to Truth or Consequences, New Mexico, and they described exactly what happened. Well, all these British people started showing up, and they were just so weird, and we couldn't deal with them, and they would just say stuff wrong, uh, and it caused all of this conflict. I mean, even then there wasn't an issue with skin color or something, but uh, they're just like, oh, well, they're outsiders, and it's in our nature. We are a tribal people. We came from a tribal background, and we always want to be like, well, we're the star-bellied Sneetches, and they're the non-star-bellied Sneetches, and we're better than they are. And it doesn't make any lick of sense whatsoever. We've all got to like take a step back outside of ourselves and be like, there's more in common between us
Right.
than what divides us.
Right.
And that unfortunately has to take place at a personal level in order for us to move forward. Truth
There's-
or consequences.
There's a quote by Mark Twain. I know I'm going to butcher it because I don't remember it too well, but he says something like, frequent travel beyond your borders is the greatest remedy for racism and prejudice. Something like that. I know I'm screwing up the quote, but it's something like that, to the effect that the more you leave your country and visit others, the more your prejudice goes away. Because of what you just said, you start realizing, like, hey, they're just people, man. Like, they're all trying to make it their own way. They all have their issues and problems, just like we do. But, I mean, if you stay stuck in this circle and all you know is that circle, it makes it easy to turn you into a radical human being, which is what's happening, unfortunately, in several hotspots in this world.
Yeah, so we'll see what happens next week. But any other last thoughts, or I think we're ready to take a little break.
No, wait. Well, are we gonna still discuss this episode?
Yeah. What
When we
else
get back
do you want
from
to
break?
talk
Well,
about?
I wanted to talk about Clara.
Okay. Do it. Is
She's
that a
Zygon?
Do you think this is her tragic end?
Well, see, that's my first thought, and then I was like, okay, because there were two thoughts that came up in my head when they revealed Clara as the Zygon. One is that this could be, I mean, well, because they haven't announced a new companion, and the thought was that she was going to be till the end of the season, so they're obviously not going to all of a sudden end her next week or something. Or at least we don't think so, unless they've got like a huge surprise that they managed not to spoil.
Osgood? Osgood for new companion for the rest of the.
That would be so awesome.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind that at all. But the other thing is that, okay, if she's a Zygon and anybody could have been a Zygon, was Danny Pink a Zygon? Did he really die? That's where my mind went as well, But then you could apply that to so many situations, couldn't you? Think about it.
Danny Pink was already dead before. No, what? No, it was after.
No, he wasn't.
After.
Yeah.
Oh,
It
crap.
was after.
You know what? I didn't even think about that.
Ah.
Can Cybermen turn Zygons into Cybermen?
I don't know.
No, because it has to be human.
Yeah.
The Cybermen are an improvement on human DNA.
Yeah.
Allegedly.
Well, yeah. that story's still being written.
So what would happen if a Cyberman tried to convert someone who they thought was a human, and it turned out they were a Zygon pretending to be a human?
Incompatible.
And they just kill him?
Yeah.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. Anyway, yeah, I don't know. I tend to think that the real Clara is actually squirreled away somewhere. I don't know, maybe Missy's got her.
See, and that's what I was thinking too. I was like, because let me tell you, I wouldn't mind a few more adventures with Missy and Clara. That stuff was funny. There was some really funny moments. Because Missy just, I mean, she's always got a plan, and she's got that humor, and she just, she seems to always best Clara. But here's the other thing that confused me, okay? Remember I was saying how in season 7 Clara was becoming a TARDIS addict and she couldn't stop, even when it was kind of ruining her relationship with Danny and affecting her work and her life in a negative way. Okay, like, remember when she was going up the stairs and she saw her little neighbor there and he didn't know where his parents were? Okay.
Right.
If you looked at her phone, it said she had 127 missed calls.
Yep.
From the doctor, and she just ignored them, and she didn't seem to care, you know, like, and normally she would just be like, where is he? Hurry up, come get me, you know what I mean? It's all very out of character, and it's suspicious to me.
Right. Is the balloon falling off type of thing?
Yeah. So, well, and that, I think that tends to, if you look back on it, it's like, well, that really explains why she wasn't with the doctor when he was going out and checking up on Ashildr too, in the last episode, where she has been either replaced or whatever for quite a while, where she's just, and her replicant is obviously not interested in, like, meeting with the doctor, being with the doctor until it's time to, like, spring that trap that they've got. So,
interesting.
Yeah, I don't know.
Well, no, it couldn't have been a replicant because she was replaced when she went into that little boy's apartment.
Oh.
It was the real Clara going up those stairs.
Yeah, that's the real Clara.
And it's very uncharacteristic that she would be ignoring the doctor. 120-something calls. That, I'm sorry, that would never happen. She is way still too addicted to time traveling, and, you know, especially this season where she's had a real taste of, like, you know, kind of taking charge, and you know what I'm saying? Like, she just has there's no going back for her at this point, I don't think. That's why her impending, you know, well, I don't want to say demise because we don't know what's going to happen to her, but her leaving the show, it's coming, and they already started kind of telegraphing it a few weeks ago, as we talked about. This could just be a further telegraphing of that, or it could be something else, because this is not like her. She's too far gone at this point to be ignoring 120 calls from the doctor needing her help. Because it's not just about time traveling anymore either. She likes being in charge. She likes being a part of it. She likes having a hand in the outcome of these big things. You know what I'm saying?
He likes being the doctor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or maybe she's finally started to have enough. Maybe she's willfully
all of a
saying,
sudden, though, I don't buy it.
I don't think it's all of a sudden, because it's been the past couple of episodes where we've been seeing less of her.
But that, we don't know if that was because she was tired of it. I mean, and honestly, last episode I didn't miss her. That's not like a knock at her. It's just
right. I see what you're saying.
Didn't need her. You know what I'm saying?
I agree. It was great.
We didn't need her. This was time for Maisie Williams to shine, and shine she did.
You know,
so I don't know. It's very uncharacteristic, and I wonder if it has something to do with her eventual leaving of the show, whatever exit strategy they have planned out for her, or if it's something bigger. I mean, do you understand what I'm saying? That's very suspicious to me.
Totally. I think she's sick of the doctor playing guitar all the time. Shut up with your amazing grace, Doctor. You're not Jimi Hendrix. Quit it.
Yes, so am I.
Yeah.
Me too. The season opener, that was more than enough. Doctor.
Yes,
the season opener, yes. The bootstrap thing with Beethoven, yes. And we can let it go from there. I didn't
even like it in the opener, but I accepted it. It was fine.
I liked it.
I thought it was funny.
We don't need to revisit that. You know, it's like, whatever.
Although I gotta say, last week when he was playing the blues, that was kind of cool, because I'm a blues type of guy. But yeah, yeah, this yesterday's was totally unnecessary.
It was for no reason. Like it didn't add anything. You know what I
Yeah, like,
mean?
what does
Like
Amazing Grace have anything to do with this? Like,
I yeah. I mean, if they wanted a moment of levity, okay. But we had that moment of levity. I thought it was funny. I don't know if y'all did when the doctor was on the playground and he was like, "Hey, Blobby, you're the Blobbies, right?" He was talking
Yeah.
to the kids, and they first gave him that blank stare, and I was like, "Oh, he's got the wrong kids, and they think he's some creepy
yeah,
old man." And it turns out he was right; those were them. But it just Blobby, that cracked me up.
That
We
was
didn't need the
brilliant.
guitar if they were going for levity with that,
Exactly.
because that was a good little moment there.
Exactly.
But
So yeah,
yeah,
I don't know what Clara's deal is. I think I mean I hope we'll find out. But if she's having some sort of doubts or she's just kind of over the doctor, I will hopefully find out next episode and figure out what's going on. Anything else before we leave the Zygon invasion?
Zygons are cool. Y'all
no.
need, y'all need to get on track, man. You're pissing me
They're,
off.
I think you're the one who needs to get on track here.
No way, man. I love those guys.
what they do is cool. Replicating humans is cool, but the big red tire creatures, as you called them, Melissa, yeah, eh, meh. I could do without
I
them.
love how they talk and whisper. We shall take over the earth. I mean, that's so cool, man.
You
You'd crap your pants if you heard that in the middle of the night.
you must have really liked Bane in The Dark Knight Rises. Then
Take this city, it is yours.
Did you
Yeah, of
like
course
Bane?
I did. I loved Bane, man.
Really?
Yeah,
I
that was
did not
cool.
like him. I think that's another prime example of like somebody going on after Robin Williams. That was that movie, that entire movie. You know what I mean? Because
He was a cool character. I thought he was. It's more credible than some guy pressing a button and growing 4 inches and 80 pounds of girth. I thought they handled Bane very, very well.
yeah, but I don't know. I don't feel that moment was earned. Where either where he broke the bat's back or where hey look this magic rope just fixed your broken spine and now you can climb out of this pit. Anyway,
Hey,
let's
don't mock
oh,
Eastern.
don't start, because Marco will argue with you
I
all
will.
day,
I really
all
like that movie,
day.
but
This
you know
will
what?
be a 5-hour podcast. That's only because you ran out of battery. Because there will be. Trust me on this. You'll never win just because he will continue to come up with ridiculous excuses for Batman. There's always an excuse for Batman.
There isn't. That was a
The
great
Marco
movie.
bubble. The
Whatever.
Marco bubble has a bat signal in it. I'm telling you.
I didn't hate Bane, but I was not like the biggest fan. But let's take a break because we have to, or else we're going to go on with this, and we'll come back and we'll talk about blowing up the moon and mummies on the Orient Express.
You know, that is such a punk thing to do. It's like sucker punching and then walking away.
Yep.
I hated. I didn't like Bane, but let's end this conversation.
we don't have enough time. The Cowboys start in 40 minutes.
I don't care. This is more important. You know, you should have ended the conversation saying, "Bye. We all have our differences. Let's take a break." But no, he had to throw a sucker punch in there.
Oh God.
Okay, Mark. You can have the last word. But right as we come back, you can have the last word on that, and then we're going to move on. Melissa, do you need to take a break? Are we all good, or should we just?
We're good.
No booze. Oh, no booze because you're sick.
Nope. Okay. Mark, go ahead. You get the last word on this.
Bane rules, baby. All right, let's roll.
Oh
Yeah,
my God.
anything else? Do you want to back that up? Go.
No, let's move on.
Okay.
I'm hurt. My feelings are hurt. It's fine.
No, don't be hurt.
I thought we was bros. I thought we was brothers, Tommy.
UPC, bro. I'm PC, bro.
Anyway.
Yeah, let's. All right. Let's go back to season 8, and we have this episode. What is it? Kill the moon, not blow up the moon. Um, so I thought this was interesting. It was like I don't know. Um, it was kind of a different episode. Um, from the beginning at least, where they're like, "Hey, we're on the moon, and there's also these astronauts, and what are they doing here? Oh, they're on like a horrible suicide mission um, that they have to figure out what's going on, and they're probably going to blow up the moon, or else there's going to be tragic consequences. And then you have the whole moral conundrum of should we blow up the moon or not? Um, I thought there was some cool character work here on the part of the astronauts. I thought Clara was good. I thought that what's her name? The little girl from her school who
Yeah,
comes along.
disruptive influence.
Yeah, destructive Courtney.
Courtney, that's her name.
Courtney. I really like. First I hated Courtney, then I really liked Courtney. So that's where I came. What did you both think?
I like Courtney. I like her. She's feisty, and I like how, despite her feistiness, that she gives this. She's got this hard shell, but when she gets scared, she wants to go home. I remember that part when she starts seeing somebody getting killed or something like that, and she's like, I take it back. I'm sorry. I want to go home, please. Like, you get to see that's what these kids are, like these disruptive, at-risk kids that seem so tough. They're actually walking scared all the time, and it's all a big show. But then we see her be brave halfway through, when she hears that they want to blow up the moon, whatever that creature is. She's like, "Get me out of the TARDIS. I want to help. I want to help," which is cool because it showed that even though for some reason she's got issues that make her act the way she does, she's actually got this undercurrent of bravery to her, which made her a much better person. And then of course we find out what she becomes in the future, which is cool too.
Melissa, what did you think?
This episode just was not that good to me. I don't know. I think at this point in the season, I was already starting to kind of not completely lose interest, but I just was already not enjoying it overall. And it was hard for me to pay attention. I wasn't as into it. You know what I'm saying? And I wonder if, like, I went back and watched the episodes of this season that I didn't like or don't remember that well, because I was not that interested at that point. I wonder if now, with different eyes, if I went back and rewatched them, if I'd be into them, But well, except for Robots of Sherwood, because I'm sure I would still hate that episode. But this just wasn't very memorable. When you said, well, first of all, you said shoot the moon, or what did you say? Something the moon. I was like, which episode was that? And I was like, oh, no, I know the one on the moon. I remember. But then I don't remember a ton about it. I don't have much to add because it was just kind of like, I could feel the strain of the season already, and I just wasn't that into it,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd like to point out that they made it so that it was all the Mexicans' fault. That it was the Mexican moon base that got in trouble, and well, I mean, if we think about it, and the moon is an egg, and a creature was going to hatch, then the Mexicans drilling into it wouldn't have really actually changed anything. But it was interesting that they chose to blame the Mexicans for
and
it.
especially because the Mexicans don't even have a damn space program. I mean, where are they going to find the money for that?
Have you not seen South Park?
No.
There's an episode in South Park where they ask some Mexican dude, like, could you build a spaceship? He's like, yeah, okay. And he actually builds one, but it's all like, a hodgepodge of pieces, and it actually goes into the atmosphere. That was pretty good.
I believe that's going to be the plot of Machete in Space, where Elon Musk sends
Nah, you
Danny
gotta be.
Trejo he sends Danny Trejo to outer space to fight Mel Gibson. That's going to be the beginning of the Mexican space program.
No, I like the. Actually, I kind of wish that there was a dragon inside the moon right now, and that we're gonna watch it hatch, and that it'll leave us a brand new egg as it flies away. That
Uh,
was kind of cool. But you know what? I'm with Melissa where I didn't hate it, but I thought it was a middle of the road episode.
yeah,
There are some good parts to it, but it wasn't great. Not all that memorable except for that dragon beast coming out of the moon, which was kind of cool.
and I think I mean it's a moral conundrum, but it's kind of a lesser moral conundrum of like, well, do we allow this thing to hatch, and do we, um, not knowing what's going to happen? Because if you actually think about it, like, hey, we're going to have a moon-sized alien dragon, like, close to us, like very close to us, and we're going to lose the moon, which will be like major effect on our tides and everything like that. And we have so romanticized the moon, for the last 6-7 millennia, that it it just boggles the mind, like what would happen without it. So I thought there was something interesting there. The one thing that I really took away from it, though, was when it came right down to it, the doctor's like, no, you know what? I'm gonna let you make this decision, Clara and Courtney and the one female captain. He's like, you three women, you're gonna be the ones who make the choice, and like took it out of the hands of the military. It's like, you three, you're gonna do it. I thought that was kind of cool, and I thought that showed a lot of insight and a lot of prescience into Clara's ability to make good moral decisions, and like Courtney seemed like a very like a real wild card in that equation. But they all came to the same conclusion. Or wait, or I guess they didn't. Like, wasn't
No,
there
I
a
didn't.
moment where they?
Yeah, that's the thing that I was going to talk about. How humanity can't be trusted. Clara gave humans the right to choose what they were going to do. She said, if you want us to blow up the moon, turn off all your lights. If you want us to save the moon and see what's there, turn on your lights. And then you start seeing all the lights go off in the globe. And it shows you that humanity still bases itself primordially in fear.
Yep.
We react and think in fear. We plan in fear. We're so governed by fear. And I think that's the gist of this episode. That humanity at that point was not ready for the next great leap because they still govern themselves in fear.
But isn't that like that's a very Time Lord thing to do? Is like, I'm gonna take a poll of the entire Earth and see what they want to do, and then when they choose the wrong way, nope,
Yeah, screw you.
I'm just gonna make my own decision. You don't get what you want. Sorry, you had your chance, and no, I'm
But we do
choosing.
that with our kids, don't we?
Yep.
Like we tell our kids, you know what, you choose, and then we see them choose, X route, which is filled with all sorts of stupidity. And we're like, okay, you're still stupid. No, you're not going down that road. We're gonna go here. We're gonna do this because we're the grown up, and because we know better. So the doctor said, I'm gonna let you guys have your way. You guys decide. And then he stepped in as the adult, saying, no, you guys aren't ready yet.
Yeah. So that I thought it was, yeah, I completely agree that, especially coming down from Listen just a couple of episodes ago, this was just a kind of episode. So let's move on to we talked about Clara being a TARDIS junkie, and she shows up and she's like, I want to go on an adventure. And so the doctor's like, okay, and sends him into space where he's been getting these invitations to go to the Orient Express. And there's a mummy that's killing people. And man, Mark, talk about, you keep saying this is the doctor who likes to kill people. just for like the sake of experimentation.
Right.
Yeah,
The
the,
whole episode was about that.
yeah, this was on full display there. So, geez,
And so we were talking about earlier on this weekend's episode how there was 127 missed calls from the doctor. We're not sure if Clara's making it ready for her exit, and we didn't talk about this about Kill the Moon, where she's pissed at the doctor because the doctor lies too much. He keeps not giving her information that she needs, and there is that current in this episode where she keeps asking the doctor, and the doctor plays stupid, where he really isn't. He knows what's going on, and they have a confrontation about that at a certain point. But yet, knowing all that, at the end, she decides to stick around because there's that rush, that thrill of interstellar travel that overrides her distrust in the doctor. Because there is gigantic distrust between them two. And I think at the beginning of this episode, she had told Danny Pink that she was going to break it off with the doctor and just tell him that she's done. She's not going to go on any more travels. But then everything that happens in this episode happens, and it kind of sucks her back in. Now, in terms of the episode, I thought it was okay. A bit lame, because I kind of wanted the mummy to do really mummy things. That would have been cool. But it turns out he's just like a freaking hologram, which was, it was a little lame. I was expecting a lot more from this episode. But, as we've said before, it's highly uneven season, and this is one of the reasons why it was so uneven. I didn't think this episode was all that strong.
yeah, it was very science-y. It was like, hey, we're gonna. I mean, the entire premise of it was we're going to put all of these smart people in a situation where they're all going to die unless they can figure out how to reverse engineer this thing.
Right.
And then we're going to kill them anyway. Like, that's kind of bleak, but it also seems fairly realistic.
Right.
Melissa?
This episode, like, a lot of people loved it. It got like a lot of critical acclaim apparently, and I really didn't quite understand why. Like, even from the first shots, like, okay, seeing the Orient Express in space, it just harkened back to that Titanic episode, the Christmas episode. Remember where we had the Titanic, and which I think we all three agreed was not exactly a great episode of Doctor Who.
But Kylie Minogue. No, I just.
Kylie Minogue.
Well, the thing is, Andy sometimes loves episodes that Marco and I are like, "Are you kidding me?" And so
Andy's broken.
The fact that he disliked that episode. You know what I mean? I mean, nobody's mind went there when they saw that. No.
What I thought is that the only reason this episode is going to be, the only reason anybody's going to like this episode is because they're going to try to make connections between this and Agatha Christie's Death on the Orient Express. And we've already dealt with Agatha Christie before. Mm-hmm. And I didn't know what to make of this because I kind of wanted to have Agatha Christie involved, but it's in the future and it's in space and it's a train in space and it's kind of silly to me. And yeah, I immediately went to the Titanic in space, which was horrible. So I guess that's what put me off to this episode from the very beginning. But
exactly, it kind of set a bad tone.
Yeah, there wasn't really much that was worthwhile in this episode up until the very end, where Clara tells the doctor, "Oh, I liked being the doctor," and he's like, "Okay, fine, whatever." And then she keeps telling him, "But I was a good doctor." And at the end, and I remember this clearly, where he tells her, "What does good have to do with this?" So it reveals a little bit more about him and his personality. But that's it. That was all I pretty much got from that episode, because the rest of it was just a lot of unforgettable stuff. The mummy was cool until he was just a hologram, and that was kind of a bummer. And everything was just a gigantic science experiment. I'm like, all right, whatever. So it was just there.
Yeah, this was more like a Scooby-Doo episode, and they're
Yes.
and now we see that the mummy was just created by this block of cheese and this projector, and they made the mummy sounds going. "Rawr."
The one thing I did like, and I've said this before, I love the more claustrophobic episodes, where they're like kind of trapped in something or another, like the one in the airplane, and anytime they're in a very enclosed space and they have to find a way to escape. Those are, that adds a nice fun element, at least to me, the claustrophobia of it all. But it's weird because it should have felt more claustrophobic, and somehow it didn't. I don't really understand why, but maybe it's because I just wasn't into it. I don't really understand what everybody saw in this episode that was so great, or if they just liked it more than they would have normally because it was, it's in the middle of a bad season overall. You know what I'm saying? If you put this episode in any other season other than 3, which was really bad, that it wouldn't be as good as it looks in season 8. Do you understand what I'm saying? I don't know if I explained that right.
I think it was different enough for people to like it, and I think, like I said before, the whole Agatha Christie connection might have gotten people, but I mean, when you judge it against the whole season, there's really nothing outstanding about it, and that's my issue with it.
I think it was very stylistic, and I think that's maybe what drew people into it. Like, it looked kind of cool, and the whole, mishmash of, well, it's on a train, but it's in the future, and it's in space, and it's kind of sci-fi, and it's kind of steampunk. Like, there's some people who really get into that, and, I thought it was kind of cool, but I didn't think it was, amazing. So, I don't know. It was just like, oh, well, that's another episode. And like you said, Mark, that's other than that really cool moment at the end and a couple of other little things here and there just wasn't a ton in here.
Right. And there's also that mechanic guy who's looking into the TARDIS, and the doctor's like, hey, would you like to be a companion? And he's like, nah, this could change a man. And I'm like, okay, you know what? Take it back. That part I really liked because we hardly ever hear that from people. Most people, when they go into the TARDIS and they find out they can travel anywhere in time, they're like, sign me up. I just want to stay here. But this guy's like, yeah, no. No, this is going to change me to a degree I don't want to be changed.
Yeah. Like I said, there's a couple little moments sprinkled here and there that I thought were worth it. But overall, as a cohesive whole, it was just kind of meh.
I agree.
Yeah. But the season keeps going, and we're only 2 away from Darkwater and Death in Heaven. Next week we'll talk about Flatline, which, man, now that was kind of a weak episode. Interesting concept, but yeah, it was not. That's the flat art people who are trapped in the walls and.
The other dimension folks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The other dimension people. See, these episodes are so unremarkable, we can't even remember them.
I think, is that the one where the TARDIS gets all tiny?
Yep.
Yes.
That's the only good part about it because that was funny.
Yeah, the incredible shrinking TARDIS and and the art people.
We don't even need to discuss it next week. I think we just discussed everything of worth in this last 30 seconds. Seriously.
Well, then let's call it good then. And I think we could do a similar thing of In the Forest of the Night, or do we want to have a bigger discussion on that?
I don't even remember.
That
London fairies.
London gets overrun with trees, and there's a Little Red Riding Hood and
the fairy tales.
Yeah. Again, I think mostly forgettable. there was some good Danny Pink in there with them like trying to shepherd the kids around through the forest of London. But yeah, two really forgettable episodes. So yeah, let's call it good. I don't think there's like much there to talk about.
Yeah, I have no protests about that unless there was something he really wanted to discuss about him. Was there
I know that
anything like for continuity's sake that we need to discuss about those? I don't even think so, right? They're pretty much standalone, aren't they?
They're
uh,
standalone. They keep. I think at some point in both of these episodes, or maybe just one, they just uh, we keep flashing over to Missy and what's going on in there. So
the
Which was
Flatliners.
silly because at this point, I think everybody in all Doctor Who fans at this point already knew who she was. Like they tried to make it some the only mystery was why she was collecting these people who died.
Correct.
But the mystery of who she is, we already got that. I think everyone guessed that long ago. So for me, it was kind of irritating for them to keep going back to her. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, because it all built up to this reveal that wasn't even a reveal. You know?
yeah, especially for me, where like I already knew about Missy, and I was like,
Yeah.
um,
But you're not alone. Everybody else knew about it too, even those who hadn't had us spoiling it for them, you know?
yeah,
Yeah, that's unfortunate because it was sort of like the whole season building up to that reveal, and it was already a bad season overall, and then you have a reveal that's not a reveal. It's just disappointing.
I think in the age of the internet where so many things leak, it becomes harder and harder and harder to do that. Like
Yeah.
I'm really amazed at Star Wars and their ability to keep a wrap on most of it. I mean, the spoilers are out there and you can find them, but
Don't.
it's yeah. But there was this great meme that was getting circulated that's like, as a Star Wars fan, I promise I'm not going to talk about any of the plot for at least a week and a half after December 18th and give everybody a chance to talk about it. Like, I'm not going to talk about it in public unless I know that you have already seen it as well. Like, I think I'm hoping we all grow in that sense and we're all willing to, like, we don't need to know right now. And some things are worth waiting for and savoring the mystery.
I agree. Yeah, I totally signing myself up to that pledge.
And speaking of, Mark, you and I are, I think, both equally excited about Spectre this week.
Oh God, that's gonna be so awesome.
You-
Do y'all have tickets to see a sneak preview?
Uh, Not to see a sneak preview, but I'm going
Uh,
Thursday night.
I had tickets, but I gave them all to my man friends because
My
I have
man friends.
my man friends. Because no women I know want to go see this.
I immediately pictured you with a harem of men around you.
I know that's not the case. No, I gave them to. I had 4 tickets. So I just gave them to all my male friends who are into. My brother
Misogyny.
and
We love our womenizers. What can we
on
say?
growing up, and I was just never really into it. I liked Skyfall. I thought that was a really good movie.
Skyfall's the
Um,
best Bond movie.
huh?
Yeah, it's arguably the best Bond movie yet.
It's the
Yeah.
best one I've seen, but I haven't seen all of them, so I can't definitively say that. And I have no desire to go back and see all the ones I haven't seen, so I guess I'll never know. But I mean, I guess if I had a 5th ticket, I might go, but I just have a lot of friends who really love James Bond, so I gave them to him. It's Wednesday, the screening. If I come across any more tickets, Marco, I'll send them your way.
I work Wednesday nights,
Oh,
so
okay.
I have plenty of opportunities to land a screener, but I work that night. It's not going to cost me anything to wait the next day.
Yeah. So that's where I'm at. But just as a word of
Cost
warning,
money.
$7.50. It's worth it.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, don't post any spoilers.
Yeah. No spoilers, but I am going to post a word of warning that maybe next week, instead of talking about Death in Heaven and Dark Water, Mark and I might just take the second half of the episode and talk about James Bond.
All right.
Then I will be exiting at the halfway point of that.
Like we'll see how epic Spectre is. If it's the movie that I hope that it is, then that might happen. If it's the movie that I think that it is, then we won't need more than 5 minutes, and we
Yeah.
can.
Look, I mean,
I
this
heard
is
terrible things like during filming and stuff. That, like,
That's what I heard too. So
yeah,
this is Batman following Heath Ledger's Joker. Skyfall was just so good that anything else is going to be a letdown. So I'm not going to go in with super high expectations. I just hope that some familiar characters are going to come about, and that'll be good enough for me.
I'm excited to see Dave Bautista. It's been a while since we've had a big hulking henchman in a Bond movie who is like physically imposing. Looks like he could
Yes.
beat the crap out of James Bond.
Exactly, and I want to see razor hats being thrown about.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, that would be cool. Whatever we see, it'll be very interesting. But yeah, so we'll try and get to those. We'll definitely get to the Zygon Inversion next week and find out exactly what's happening with Clara. Um, but until then, thanks Mark, thanks Melissa for being here as always. You guys really, I I feel so very lucky and so blessed to have awesome people like you two to bounce my ideas off of and to set me straight. And I love arguing with you both. It's always fun, and even when it gets a little bit heated, it's great. I really love it. So thank you, thank you, thank you as always. I don't say it often enough, and I want to do that now. Um, thanks to everyone at Big Shiny Robot for hosting our podcast, and we will see you all next time.
Bye bye.
bye.
And that's over.